Not many businesses have had much to toast about during the past 2 years, and that's as true for the wine business as it is for anyone else. From lockdowns to trade wars and climate change, the industry has had, well, little to raise a glass about. But things are now changing, and to steal a wine metaphor, the business now has time to breathe. So a little earlier, I caught up with Robert Foye. He's the big boss, the boss of Accolade Wines, one of the world's biggest wine companies, whose 50-plus brands include Hardy's and Echo Falls. And I began by asking him if the pandemic is continuing to impact the hospitality business on which they rely.
No, it absolutely does. And it really kind of differs by country, and it's quite interesting. I mean, you have places like Australia where, we're the second largest wine company there. I mean, they're still in lockdown, as you know, in Sydney, Melbourne, and different parts of Australia. If you come to the UK, you're 100% opened up. But because of the effect of COVID, because people's habits have changed, because some outlets have gone out of business, you're really only at 65% of the level of 2019 or 2018. So a long way to go. And we think that's going to take, honestly, probably about 2 years to get to the 95% level. Jump over to the US, they're opening extremely fast. And I would say in the US, they're kind of at the 90% level. Again, some changing habits that'll probably be there for the next couple of years, but it totally differs by geography.
It is very different, isn't it? Robert, let's talk about staff shortages due to, well, career changes and, of course, isolating. It's all been in the headlines. How did this impact your business? Because I'm kind of wondering, well, I imagine like grape picking, for an example. It's a fairly labor-intensive business that, well, it can't be delayed, can it?
We made a decision at the beginning of this COVID and all the way through to really focus on our people, not to lay people off, not to furlough. And I think as a result of that, we have not had many issues. Where we have seen issues and staff shortages is outside of our business with suppliers, but even more importantly is distribution and truck drivers taking things from our plant to depots, from customer depots to stores. We've seen staff shortages in on-premise restaurants. And some of our customers having a very hard time getting back up to full business. And we just deal with it as much as we can, but the staff shortages are definitely there. And there's a whole new group of employees that need to be trained when they come in our customers, truck drivers, restaurants, and things like that.
Robert, as you and I both know very well, Australia has seen, well, the toughest lockdown measures on the planet. I mean, some may suggest draconian by some standards. Is that continuing to hit your business?
For us, I think the biggest issue with it is, you come out of lockdown and then you go back into lockdown. So it's more the variability of how to deal with it. The biggest issue for us is, when restaurants close down and then they close and then they come back open, a lot of our customers are feeling pain and having a difficult time. The only thing that we can do is really support them and support what they're doing in their business. And that's another focus of us, as well as supporting our teams, especially during very difficult lockdown after lockdown, even mental health issues, for instance. We've done a lot of stuff on fitness and mental health and things like that.
But Robert, I've got to ask you this. Do you worry that Australia, which was once seen, right, as, one of the best countries at dealing with COVID, is kind of now just being left behind with very low vaccination numbers?
I think what happened was Australia did an incredibly good job up front. And if you look at it, I think Australia actually does not have any excess deaths from COVID. So that should be applauded. I think now getting people vaccinated quickly, I personally think the government's on it. And you've seen those vaccination rates, I think, go from 10% to 34, 35% in a matter of a month. So I would hope by, November, December, they're caught up. And I don't see any reason why the government can't do that.
Let's talk about relations with Beijing and Australia. I mean, very strained. It's after, of course, China slapped, 200% tariffs on Australian wine. And yet it is such an important, a huge market. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, China was the top buyer of Australian wine before the tariffs. So this has got to be hitting you pretty badly, no?
For us, On Australian wine going into China, we were hit less hard than some other players from Australia. But these tariffs, they come and go, to be honest, and we don't ever get involved in the politics or what's behind it. What we need to do is look at, and that's what we're doing, looking at our customers and consumers in China. What other countries of origin can we bring them? How can we increase our innovation and get different products to them? And that's totally fine. China is the #1 red wine market in the world. And we're gonna invest in China, and we're gonna build our business there. It's just gonna force us to innovate a lot faster.
Let's talk about health, Robert, because while apparently a glass of red with your meal to wind down is not really a bad thing, there is a worrying problem out there with alcoholism, particularly with more people, right, drinking at home alone. I mean, how do you tackle that?
We do a lot of training, obviously, with our own teams, but we also educate the consumer, and we're part of bodies that do that. The other thing is you hit an absolutely great point, and the consumer's going that way anyway. And we call it low and zero alcohol, low and no alcohol. And we are innovating significantly in there. So we've got a lot of products now that are 5%, 5.5% alcohol. We're coming out actually with a new zero alcohol wine that actually tastes good. I know you find that hard, you probably find that hard to believe. And it's just a matter of having the right technology to capture the flavors and everything from the wine without the alcohol. And my test is pretty simple. If I won't have a glass or two of it, then the consumer won't have it.
Robert, let's turn to climate change because, I mean, boy, extreme weather has certainly hit wine growers around the world, and the UN warns, time is running out to tackle the causes of global warming. How worried are you about all of that picture?
We want to do two things. We want to move more toward carbon neutrality. And if you look at it, customers and consumers want it. And the second thing is we really want to go after packaging, more and more recycling, lighter bottles, different types of bottles that maybe aren't glass and things like that as well, to innovate into cans, et cetera, et cetera. I'm actually sitting here in the park, which is our facility in Bristol, UK. It's the largest wine bottling and distribution center in the UK. We own it. We run it kind of independently so that it does our brands, plus it does other brands in the market. But the interesting thing is it is fully 100% carbon neutral. One of the ways we do it is we ship in bulk wine, which actually is kept really, really well, aseptically, and then we bottle it here. So that lowers the carbon footprint. We have a windmill out front that provides half of the energy.
On that note, Robert Foye, the big boss of Accolade Wines, how I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on my show. Good luck with everything, and I'll check in with you soon.
Thank you, and I'd love to come back.